Hilltoppers with a blitz. It's intercepted by Key, and Key has one man to beat. A nice cut move. Edwards can't get him. Key takes it all the way. A pick six for Devin Key. What a start for Western Kentucky.
There goes Key. Splits the defenders and he's gone. 65 yards. He completes it with a somersault.
The handoff to Furby. Breaks through the defense. DeAndre Furby from 36 yards out. And Western Kentucky back up by 2 scores.
Riley's 2 yards in. Gonna bring it out. Oh! Riley's down. Almost loose. And it's picked up. And it's returned for a touchdown by Marshall.
So please join me in welcoming the 21st head coach in WKU football history, Tyson Helton.
And Marshall's going to finish the year 9-4 and champions of the 2018 Gasparilla Bowl, the 6th consecutive bowl win for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Welcome back to the brand new Moonshine Throwdown podcast. This week, we continue our series of position group breakdowns. We're talking the secondary this week. A lot of, well, I won't say a lot of, but several key losses on both teams out of the secondary. Some very, very, very impactful players. A lot of talent returning, so we'll dig into all that. We'll have some, I don't know, general info. The guys will talk about how they feel about the unit as a whole. Some guys you might see early in the rotation, and then we'll talk about the same kind of stuff we talked about last week, which is several little questions: toughest guy to replace, who you're most excited to see, things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start once again in Bowling Green, Kentucky, with those defensive backs of Western Kentucky. Phil Steele ranks the topper unit at number 9 in the conference, which personally I feel is pretty harsh. Stephen will talk to us here in a minute about the several key losses from that team. I'm going to talk to you right now about projected starters today. Now, it could change by the time we roll around to week 1, but here are our projected starters as we think they'll happen today. Cornerback Trey Meadows, a JUCO guy, former NC Stater, a 6'1", 185-pound junior. Across the field at the other corner spot, Roger Cray, 5'10", 170-pound junior, 27 tackles, 3 passes defended, and 11 starts. Now, we're going to talk more about Coco Darden this week, even though Phil lumps him in with the linebackers for some reason. Even, in fact, on the preseason Phil Steele All-CUSA team, Coco gets one of the linebacker slots as a nickelback on the third team. But like I said last week, man, the guy's more of a secondary player to me and to all of Topper Nation, basically. So that's where he fits into this episode. 5'9", 190-pound senior, 71 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 11 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and 11 starts, and second team all-conference. Starting strong safety, looks like it'll probably be Antoine Kincaid right now, 5'11", 195-pound junior, 29 tackles and 2 starts. And then free safety, big fan personally, Devin Key, 6'1", 205-pound junior, lands on Phil Steele's All-CUSA 4th team, 71 tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss, 6 passes defended, 3 interceptions, including one of those, a pick 6. Devin also lands as Phil Steele's number 33 draft-eligible free safety for 2019. So, Steve, let's talk about these guys. Then we'll talk about some guys probably fresh in the rotation, first off the bench. But first, you got to talk to me about those key losses for the topper defensive backs.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 guys that are going to be huge losses and big shoes to fill. Granted, I think there's some guys with some more than capable talent behind them. But when you lose DeAndre Ferris, which was an All-CUSA performer, and you lose safety Darrell Green, I mean, both of those guys were impactful, made plays throughout their careers. So, those guys just combined were a lot of good senior leadership, and I think they probably set the standard for the expectations in the safety in the cornerback position. So I think the room is in good hands, but it's always tough to lose as it started a lot of ball games and made a lot of plays for you.
Yeah, so two-year starters gone, several starters back, but when two starters depart, that means there's got to be new shoes to fill. So how do you feel about this projected starting unit of Phil Steele? I mean, of course, we know we have Devin Key and Coco Darden, two bona fide playmakers for this secondary, and several guys that are no slouch. But as a whole, how do you feel about are they better off this year than last? Are they about the same? I mean, do you like where the unit's headed? I mean, what do you feel about it?
I think it's going to be about the same. I mean, do I expect some drop off when you lose that much experience? Very well could happen, but I still think it's going to be one of the strongest units on the team. Having Devin Key back is huge. I mean, that guy's got a lot of game experience at this point. Very physical, can get from hash mark to hash mark and play a lot of outfielder out there and make some plays on the ball. And then Takorian Darden, 2 years ago earned a scholarship, and since then it's just kind of been a good feel-good story. He's a local boy from Russellville, and has really made some good plays. So feel real good about him. Really have heard nothing but good things about Trey Meadows, projected starter, JUCO guy. Should come in, make an immediate impact. Then you got Roger Cray, which was just on the Bruce Feldman's top 40 freaks in college football. So, athletically, very gifted guy. And hopefully that translates over onto the field and the production that he's very capable of.
Yeah, I noticed that the Toppers landed two guys on that list. What was it called? Like 50 freaks or something like that of college football. I don't know exactly what the title was, but yeah. Roger Cray, 27 tackles, 3 passes defended, 11 starts last year. I mean, a lot of experience on the field. I think the question is, it's not about the guys that are going to start out there. Is how much depth do you have and how deep can the rotation go? Because, I mean, it takes a lot of guys to keep a well-oiled machine of a secondary going. So let's talk about some of those guys that you might see coming into the rotation fairly quickly. How about cornerback Deontay Ruffin, the 5'11", 190-pound junior, 28 tackles, 3 passes defended in 12 games last year. A lot of experience there. All right. Then we kind of go through a youth movement a little bit. A cornerback Beanie Bishop, a 5'11", 170-pound redshirt freshman. Cornerback Anthony Polite, 5'11", 190-pound sophomore. And then a strong safety, maybe first one off the bench behind Kincaid would be A.J. Brathwaite, 6', 190-pound redshirt freshman. You do get a touch of senior leadership in there with the free safety Kanan Jackson, 6'1", 220-pound senior, I say. But I don't know. Is there maybe not as much depth as you would like to see than what you had last year? That to me is the big question. Maybe that's where that number 9 ranking comes in. But I mean, if we're just going starting unit for starting unit, there's no way the Toppers have the number 9 unit in Conference USA. There's no way.
Yeah, there's another guy on there that you didn't mention, Ellie Rogers Anderson, a junior. He'll be a nice kind of plug and play guy. He's got some experience there, so he's gonna be impactful as far as being a leader, being an upperclassman. There are a lot of freshmen and redshirt freshmen and just some younger guys, but hopefully, health willing, we don't have to play them a ton of reps. They're just kind of seeing end of game cleanup duty and, getting some valuable game experience, but not necessarily, being thrust into a starting role and needing to, be shut down and Revis Island type guys. Hopefully they're just going to get some good game experience. The depth is a small concern, but like you said, that starting unit, I'd put them almost against anybody in the conference. I think they're going to be a real strong unit. Hopefully just, help be a real strong back end to our defense and get us off the field as much as possible. So hopefully the offense can sure made up this year.
So taking in all that into account, all these guys we have on the roster now, and who we just talked about that has departed the program, of those two guys, who's the toughest to replace?
Yeah, without a doubt, it's DeAndre Ferris. I mean, the guy was an all-CSA performer as a junior. was near the top of the nation in pass breakups his junior year. Last year, statistically, it may look like he fell off a little bit, but that's probably due in part to his reputation as being a guy that makes a lot of plays on balls. So, it's definitely DeAndre Ferris, but I think we've got some guys there, especially Trey Meadows, that's going to step up and help fill those shoes. There may be some drop off, especially, when you're losing a senior leader like that. But, I still think it's going to be a strength of our defense, and those guys are, ready to step up and be the next man up.
All right, so of the guys that we've got starting, of the guys coming into the rotation, who are you most excited to see in 2019?
Well, I'm most excited to see Devin Key. I mean, the guy has been a staple of our defense the last 2 years. Exciting guy, makes plays, kind of always seems to be near the ball and helping, make stops. So he's a big physical kid, and now he's got a ton of game experience under his belt now. So, he's going to be kind of a leader in that room. Yeah, I expect him to have a huge, huge season. So definitely Devin Key.
Okay, since we're talking about Devin Key, let me ask a few questions particularly about him. And one I teased on Twitter as we lead into recording tonight. I don't know how exactly he'll be utilized and in the same, if it's kind of sort of the same as it's been, or if it's going to be a little bit more different, if they're going to cut him loose a little bit more. But is he now, or does he have the potential to be, at least if they change the way he's utilized a little bit, the most versatile safety in the Conference USA?
He very well could be. I mean, he has all the physical skills and attributes to definitely showcase that. I mean, we've seen him play down near the line. We've seen him play center field. I think, we've seen him play a little bit of everything. Luckily, when the staff turned over, we kept Clayton White and the defensive coaches. That side of things didn't change. So, maintaining the system shouldn't be a problem. He should be a leader. He should know what to do. He should be helping make calls and adjustments on the field. So definitely, the continuity of that side of the ball is going to be a huge factor to the whole overall success of the defense. And I think Devin can definitely be in that conversation as, in the top tier of safeties in Conference USA.
Oh, I think he's already in the top tier of safeties without a doubt. I just wasn't sure if they were going to let him have a little bit more free reign to play closer to the line of scrimmage, to where you get to see more of a Malik Gant type game for the fans of this rivalry. Like, can Devin Key in 2019 be what Malik Gant was for the Herd in 2018? Can he be that first team all conference player, getting upwards of 90-ish plus tackles, still playing center field? But I mean, that's the type of guy that I think if you have, boy, does that take a lot of heat off of the rest of your defense. Holy moly. So that's the question. It's not a question of skill. It's, will he be cut loose enough and maybe try that out a little bit? I'd like to see it personally. I think I said last year that he was my favorite player on the top of roster last year. So I'm not shying away from that this year. I'm a big fan of Devin Key. I love the way he plays football. So how about the breakout player this year? Who's the guy? We know we have two known commodities. So is there somebody else that's going to break out in a big way this year?
I think it's going to be JUCO cornerback Trey Meadows. 6'1", very physical, gifted athlete over there. He's had a good spring by all accounts, by all feedback of what Helton and Clayton White kind of shared as far as his on-field success and, getting entrenched in the system. And, kind of a highly touted kid coming in. He's going to plug in and start from day one. That's the projection. And I think, being the new guy on the roster, he's going to get thrown at his fair share of times, early in the going. They're going to take some big shots at him. So, next man up, DeAndre Ferris is gone. Your turn, Trey. And I think he's ready to do that. He's going to shine. He's going to lock some people down and get some interceptions and hopefully make some big plays for us.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I mean, he's not a lot. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of film out there, but new to the conference, they're definitely going to test you. That's for sure. So who's the guy, man? Who's going to be the MVP of the secondary in 2019.
Yeah, I got to go with Devin Key, the known commodity, the upperclassman leader now. Like you were talking about earlier, can he have a big breakout Malik Gant type season? I mean, he had 94 tackles 2 seasons ago. He had 71 last year. He can sniff up around that 100 tackle mark. Wouldn't be surprised if he has, 10 plus passes deflected, hopefully a few interceptions. Help seal a game and put one away for us. I expect one or two of those type plays from him, just because I know he's capable, and he's going to put himself in that position to succeed along with the coaching staff. So definitely Devin Key, big year coming for the guy. Definitely can't wait to see him out there balling.
Now, like I said earlier in the episode here, he was rated already the number 33 draft eligible free safety by Phil Steele, just a junior. And I might add the highest rated from Conference USA and one of the highest, obviously, in the G5. So the talent is undoubtedly there. So how about a hot take? I need a hot take for the secondary.
Yeah, I think we're going to have 2 guys that have 5+ interceptions. So that's pretty hot. And I think Devin Key will hit that 100 tackle mark.
Ooh.
Give me 2 of them. 2 hot takes.
2 hot takes. All right. Wow. I was looking at that, of course, in the course of prepping for the episode, and I didn't see a lot of like interceptions as a whole. So, it'd be nice to get a few more of those in chalked up in the INT column for sure. All right. So undoubtedly a lot of talent. We both agree that this is going to be a real strength for the Topper defense, just like it was last year. So, look forward to maybe more production this year, some more guys stepping into the limelight, and some known entities continuing to produce at a high level and freaking totally proving this number 9 ranking from Phil Steele completely wrong, because this is definitely a top 3rd unit in the Conference USA. So hang with us, because on the other side of this break, Trace is here with us. We're going to talk about the Herd and the Herd secondary. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.
It will be a very Merry Christmas for the people involved with Marshall football. The first time ever Marshall has won a bowl game. October 10th of 87, they beat Louisville when they were a 1AA school. That was a landmark day. December 23 of 98 is a landmark day as Marshall wins the 98th Motor City Bowl. Our final score, Marshall 48, Louisville 29.
We are back. Trace is here in the house. We're talking about the Marshall DBs. A lot of talent on the group, Trace. Let's talk about them. Phil still ranks them number 2 Conference USA, but wait, number 33 nationally. Pretty big deal. A lot of pub there for the Herd defensive backs, despite the loss of one major player that we've talked about ad nauseum. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and give it away. It's Malik Gant, first team all conference. Man, we've talked about that dude a ton. He's currently in New England with the Patriots trying to earn a roster spot. So generally, if Bill Belichick sees something in you, there's generally some talent there. All right, so let's talk about it, Trace. Projected starters. We'll talk about your thoughts on that unit, those projected starters, and then we'll talk about the guys coming off the bench. Yeah, first out of the gate for the rotation, Phil Steele, first team all conference cornerback, Chris Jackson, 6 foot, 187 pound senior, 61 tackles last year, 16, count them, 1-6 passes defended, just 1 interception though, in 13 starts, earned second team all conference honors last year. Cornerback Kerryon Morrell, 5'11", 176 pound senior, 35 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 7 passes defended in 10 starts last year. Strong safety Brandon Drayton, big guy, 6'3", 198 pound junior, 51 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 passes defended, 1 interception in 13 games last year. And free safety Najee Johnson, 5'10", 192 pound junior, 59 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 6 passes defended, and 1 interception in 13 starts. So, lot of downs played for those 4 guys. Trace, talk to me about this unit as it's projected right here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see this unit this year. I'll be honest, I feel like this is probably the best. I would say if Malik Gant was back, it obviously would be the best defensive back unit in Conference USA, in my opinion, without a doubt. But since he's gone, I mean, second's fair. But I feel like just overall, from top to bottom, this might be the best overall, defensive back secondary unit in the conference. I mean, I feel like they have a lot of depth, even without Malik Gant. And that's something in the Field Steel magazine under the defensive back column. He said, even though they lose Gant, they're better. This position is better. This unit's better than it was last year. So I think that's a pretty big testament to the depth that they have and the guys they have back there. And honestly, I feel confident in this unit to the point where I would say this is probably going to be the best secondary unit that Marshall's had in several years. Probably, if I thought about it, probably the best since probably 14 or 15 season, one of those two. So they had a really stout secondary at that point, even though they had one game where they kind of were a little bit iffy, and that kind of helped launch his podcast. But I'll just get past that point. But I'm not gonna go there. But no, I mean, I feel pretty confident in this unit this year. I think they're going to be a really big strength. I think this is going to be the best. Like I kind of mentioned there briefly, that might be the best overall secondary play Marshall's had in several years. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is a lot of guys. I mean, senior, junior. First off. So that should tell you right there, there's a lot of game experience there. And these guys in particular have played a lot. So it's not just like they've been sitting on the bench and, well, I'm finally a senior, I'm going to play now. No. Chris Jackson is definitely a known entity. Brandon Drayton has made big plays for the Herd at the safety position. And Najee Johnson, of course, burst on the scene several years ago in the Moonshine Throwdown with the pick 6 of Mike White to turn the tide of that game. So that's where most Herd fans got to know Mr. Johnson. But let's talk about some guys that you might see first off of the into the rotation, and that 2 big ones right off the bat, really. That got one got a lot of playing time last year, one got a lot of playing time the year before that, but was basically out for the year last year. So that's cornerback Jalen McLean-Sapp, back from injury for the Herd, 5'11", 181-pound junior. Like I said, basically out for the year last year. I mean, he missed almost all the season, but in the limited time he did get to play, he still tallied 11 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 passes defended, and an interception. So there is some talent there. Cornerback Stephen Gilmore, 5'11", 163-pound true sophomore, 17 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defended, and he appeared in 13 games last year as a true freshman. Strong safety Chad Clay, 6'1", 204-pound junior. He sat in 2018 as a transfer from Georgia. And then free safety Marquise Colvin, 6', 202-pound redshirt freshman, 1 tackle in 4 games last year as a true freshman. So you said it, despite the loss of Gant, Phil still thinks this unit is overall in better shape. So what about these guys? I mean, still quite a bit of downs played in the rotation.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they have a lot of experience, even the young guys, like, the Gilmores and those guys, even they've played football. I mean, McLean-Sapp, he's a really talented guy. I think he didn't play a whole lot last year, obviously, but he's got experience. Gilmore's got experience now as he's going to be a sophomore. So, I mean, there's really not anybody in this unit that really hasn't played much before. I mean, even certain other guys, I mean, there's some guys, of course, won't play a whole lot, but like Clay, I mean, he was a transfer from Georgia. So, I mean, he's got probably if I looked into it, I'm sure he's got some playing time, So, I mean, this is one of the more experienced secondaries that they've had in a while. I think it's going to pay big dividends in this season. And, if Malik Gant was back, man, I would be absolutely raving about this unit. But, like, even without him, it's still a strength for sure, and one of the tops in the conference. So I really think that they're going to have a good year.
Yeah. One guy we didn't even mention, because as we record this podcast, I don't know if he's going to have to sit or if he's going to get to play. And that's, of course, the guy we mentioned a few episodes back, which is West Virginia transfer Derek Pitts, 6'1", 182-pound junior. I wrote down some stats from West Virginia last year. 27 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 4 passes defended, and an interception. So the jury's still out if he has to sit or if he's going to get to play this year. But if he gets to play, there's one more in the mix. So,
game changer.
Yeah, this is a lot of talent. This is definitely a strength for the Marshall defense, despite the loss of Mr. Basically everywhere, everything Malik Gant. So I don't know what more you say. We've recorded now and talked about the defensive line, the linebackers, and the secondary, and I'm not sure there's a real legit weakness on this Marshall defense. Yes, they might be a little bit weaker somewhere than they were the year before, but it's still not a weakness on the team. But that being said, I mean, we talked about the key loss of one guy. So Trace, cut through all the mystery and tell us who's going to be the hardest to replace from this Herd secondary.
This is one of the toughest questions that I've had this entire series podcast, but it's got to be Malik Gant. If you just think about it hard enough, I think it's Malik Gant. I mean, I might be going out on a limb here, but I think it's Malik Gant.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough call. It's Malik Gant or nobody, so it must be Malik Gant. Taking all that into consideration, who we think is going to be your projected day one starters or week one starters, everybody coming off the rotation, who are you most excited to see play in 2019?
Yeah, to be serious, this actually is a tough question because there's a lot of guys that like I really am intrigued to see. Like I'm really intrigued to see all of them, but like if I had to say one, for some reason I'm going to go with Brandon Drayton. And like, I don't know why, but like, he's kind of interested me the last couple of years quite a bit more than other players. 2017 as a freshman, I noticed him a lot. I noticed him really making a lot of plays. I noticed that he has a big upside and potential. Last year, I don't know if he was in the doghouse with Doc or if he was just injured or something, but like, he didn't play necessarily the most last year, but even when he did play, he made a lot of plays. I mean, the guy just is a playmaker. He's like Malik Gant. I mean, obviously not going to say he's Malik Gant, but like he's got Malik Gant qualities, I feel like. And I really think Drayton's a really good player, long, rangy. I remember a couple years ago in that game when they played Cincinnati and they beat the brakes off of Cincinnati, he had a really impressive game that stood out to me in that. Like he plays, one of the things I noticed more about him than other players is he actually plays the ball in the air. He doesn't just stare down the receivers when he's trying to defend the passes, and that's one of the things that really have been irritating me over the last few years is that they don't turn their heads enough to look at the ball in coverage. So I feel like Drayton's good at that, and I really think he's going to have a huge year, especially with Gant gone. He's going to be needed to add on a lot to fill that void. So I'm going to go Brandon Drayton.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, one of all the talent and all the numbers and the stats and all that kind of stuff, the one thing you can't teach is 6'3", and that's just not common from the safety position. So that's a real asset to me. It's much better than being 5'8". I mean, I'm closer to 5'8" than 6'3", so I would love to be closer to 6'3". So who's going to be the breakout player in 2019?
Yeah, I had to think about this one too, but I'm going to go with Stephen Gilmore. I really liked what he did last year towards the end of the year. I noticed him making a lot of plays, coming on strong as a freshman. Every time you see a freshman come out there and start making plays and stepping up, you really get excited for the future. And it's the same way with Gilmore. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's going to make a lot of plays, be a big impact player on that defense, add some depth. I mean, I don't know if the secondary needs depth because they got a lot of guys, but like he's going to add some depth and he's going to add a lot of just kind of versatility to the secondary. And I feel like Gilmore's going to have a really good year. Obviously, I would say a breakout year considering he's got limited playing time, but I really like what he did last year, especially towards the middle to end of last year. I noticed him really starting to catch on. So I'm going to go Gilmore for that one.
Well, I mean, first of all, you can never have enough depth in the secondary. Right. Guys are going to get tired. Guys are going to get injured. And you definitely don't want to get exposed if your number one guy goes down. So, good pick there with Stephen Gilmore. How about potential MVP for the unit this year?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Jackson. And he's had one of the more, I don't know what the word is, polarizing careers, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word because I just always remember when he was a true freshman in 2016, he got maligned so much by the fan base. He was picked on heavily by the fan base because, he got burnt quite a bit that year, but he was a freshman. He's a true freshman that really shouldn't have been playing, but because they didn't have a whole lot of options, they couldn't redshirt until he had to play. But the next 2 years, he's really stepped up and been a really good player. I mean, 2-time second-team all-conference guy. That shows that he's one of the better, considered one of the better corners in the conference. And I think he's going to have his best year to date this year. I'm really looking forward to it. Field still has him preseason first team all conference. I feel like he will be a first team all conference guy if he stays healthy. Jackson, I'm really looking forward to seeing him as a senior this year, to see what he brings to the table with another year of experience, coming off a back-to-back second team all conference season. So I'm going to go Chris Jackson for the MVP.
Yeah, in fairness to Chris Jackson, you're right. He got picked on a lot as a freshman in 2016. But in fairness, geez, the whole Herd team got picked on a lot in 2016.
Everybody did.
They were kind of bad. 3-9 squad. So that was a good year to be bad, to go 3-9. Good year to get picked on because it proved to pay dividends the last 2 years. But let me ask you this question since we're talking about Chris Jackson. I posed the question on Twitter, so I got to ask you now. Is Chris Jackson Marshall's first true lockdown corner since I said on Twitter, Swag Roberts, Daryl Roberts?
Yeah, I feel like he is. I'm not going to say that he's the same level of lockdown corner as Daryl Roberts was, but I'm going to say he's the next best thing since him. I think he's really – just look at some of the numbers he's had. The passes defended that he's had are huge numbers. It's been huge. And, I remember last year in that FAU game, one series in particular – they tried to go deep on him twice, and he batted the balls down 2 straight plays when they tried to throw about 40, 50-yard bombs. So, I just remember that series was so impressive. That was one of the best games he's ever played, in my opinion, at Marshall. And I feel like he's going to have a lot of games like that. So, I'm not going to say that he is Daryl Roberts in terms of a lockdown corner, but like I said, I think he's the next closest thing since him, and I really think he could have – this could be the year where he finally – well, not finally, but this could be the year where he looks like Daryl Roberts. Not that you're trying to be somebody else, but that would be a good sign.
Oh, that's a nice player to model your game after. He was very successful at Marshall. And just since you mentioned those passes defended, Phil Steele was nice enough to, for some reason, put all 3 years of Chris's passes defended there. So 11 as a true freshman in 2016, 13 passes defended as a sophomore in 2018, and 16 last year. So steady improvement from Chris Jackson. So, yeah, he has the potential maybe to be Marshall's first true lockdown corner since Daryl Roberts. All right, so give me a hot take for the secondary for the Herd in 2019.
Yeah, I was trying to brainstorm this one, and I really didn't know where I was going to go, but I'll go ahead, and since I kind of did this similar with one of the linebackers that I did for the hot take for them, or no, it was defensive line. I did a hot take involving Channing Haynes, so I'm going to give a hot take this time involving Chris Jackson in a similar fashion. I think he's going to lead Conference USA in interceptions.
Okay. With? He's got to have more than 5 because Steven's predicting 2 toppers with 5+. That's a plus, not just 5+.
Right. Okay. I'm going to say 7.
Okay.
He's going left switch on him. He's going left switch on him.
They're not going to throw at him. He's not going to lead the league in interceptions.
He's going to get batted balls. Don't at me.
From 1 last year to 7. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, I hope you're listening because Trace has put all the pressure on you, and I'm sure that weighs heavily on how you're going to play.
Hey, and let's be real. I think the last time that Marshall's had anybody in that level of interceptions was probably A.J. Leggett when he was playing for Marshall. I remember he had 4 interceptions in back-to-back years. I feel like no Marshall player – I'd have to look at the stats, but I feel like no Marshall player has had that many interceptions in the season since him. So maybe Roberts, but that'd be the only guy really.
Yeah, we're going to have to name drop a little bit here just in case they're listening to this podcast. So these huge Marshall stat collectors, and the ones that have access to all that stuff can access it really quickly. So, Chuck McGill, who's the last Marshall player to have 7 interceptions in a season? Woody Woodrum, who's the last Marshall player to have 7 interceptions in a season? Because
it might have been Mark Schneider, honestly. He had 10 that one year. You remember that? I seen a stat. Well, I seen the stat years ago. That in the late 80s, Mark Schneider led the Southern Conference in interceptions, and he had 10 or something. I was like, good Lord.
Dude, I do. Of course I do not remember that.
I wasn't alive, but I still know the stat.
All right. So anyway, there you go. Wow. There you have it. Just like the Western Kentucky side, Marshall, tons of talent, tons of returning experience. Going to be a huge weapon. I do not envy any offense that has to throw into the secondary. It's going to be harder than not to get a pass completed, I feel like. So Not a bad take. Lots of good info. Another good episode as we move forward to week 1. All right, Trace, give us some final thoughts, and we'll work on getting the heck out of here this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to see what the secondary does this year. I think it's going to be a real strength. As far as the positions that we've broke down so far defensively, I feel like I would put the secondary maybe slightly in first place ahead of linebackers and then defensive line. I feel like I might rank them in that order. But, I mean, I think it's going to be a strength, no doubt about it. I mean, if it pans out like it looks like it will on paper, I'm really looking forward to it. And like I said, I feel like they could have their best season overall as a unit since 2014 or 2015, something like that. It's been several years since they've had a really overall strong secondary unit. I mean, they've had guys in the last couple years that have made plays, obviously Chris Jackson and certain guys like that, but like they haven't necessarily had an overall unit really impress. But like even last year, like there was a lot of games where they kind of got torched a little bit and, inconsistency a little bit. The safeties were great last year, but the corners were a little bit inconsistent. So I feel like a lot of that inconsistency is going to be, figured out this year. I feel like they're more experienced, more seasoned, and they're going to have a really good year. So I'm looking forward to the secondary. I think it's going to be a big focal point of the defense. It's going to bail them out hopefully a few times and hopefully lead them to a Conference USA title or East Division title. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm with you. I can't tell you Marshall has had good secondaries for sure.
Yeah.
They haven't been an Achilles heel since basically everything was the Achilles heel when the wheels fell off in 2016. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're probably right. 2014 was probably the last time that they swarmed to the level that Herd fans want to see a secondary swarm. Let's put it that way.
You had Daryl Roberts and my Lord, AJ Leggett.
Lots of talent. Yeah.
Right.
Who's that? That was also Taekwon Lang, Taj Letman.
Yes.
DJ Hunter was a linebacker, but he was basically like your Cam Chancellor type guy. So he would drop back in coverage as well. A lot of talent there. I mean, you do lose the all-timer in Malik Gant. I mean, you can't say that enough. But I still think there are there has the potential to be another all-timer on at least one right now on this roster. But hey, we'll see how it plays out. If everybody stays healthy, then it's easy to talk about it. It's when people start getting dinged up and things start going wrong to where the rubber really meets the road. So we got some news here as a podcast that I didn't share in the beginning, but I'll share it during my final thoughts. So this week, we were fortunate enough to be added to the single largest podcasting platform on the planet, which I tweeted about earlier this week. So now you can also find the Moonshine Throwdown podcast on iHeartRadio, which means you have no excuse. There should be no reason you can't find the show between iHeartRadio and Spotify and Stitcher and Spreaker and a Castbox as well. We were added to Castbox. So, hey, there's plenty of ways to listen. We sure would appreciate it if you would subscribe so that you never miss an episode. It will get auto-downloaded straight into your inbox, so it can get into your ear canals as soon as we upload the episodes. We want to thank everybody that continues to listen, everybody that continues to interact with us. We really do love it. And we try every week to bring you the best quality content that we can. We are not perfect. We will not claim to be, but we sure do have a hell of a lot of fun bringing you these podcasts, and we want to continue to do it as best as we possibly can. So I think Steven had to duck out, so we may have to miss out on some final thoughts from Steve. But anyway, I'll take us out of here when it's time to do the Go Tops here in a second. But another great week. We appreciate you guys listening. Please subscribe. Find us wherever you find your podcast. Please interact with us. Follow the Twitter account for the podcast at MSTD Podcast. Until next week, we'll be talking about what's next week. Oh man, is that lineman? Is next week the lineman? Let's see.
The other side of the ball, yeah.
Let me see. Oh yeah, that's right. Next week, it's the offensive line. A lot of guys, a lot of talent, a lot of downs, a lot of experience. This is going to be a fun episode next week. So until next week, go Tops, Trace.
Go Herd.
We'll see you next week. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. We're out of here.